Paul's invention of American raku is the biggest contribution in the contemporary ceramic world.
It was around 1960 when I was teaching at Scripps College. And that particular year, a little voice in the back of my head somewhere said, do something new, do something different.
Many of us had read about raku in Bernard Leach's book, where he first spoke about how he discovered this method of making pots when he was living in Japan.
This potter would glaze the pieces with a clear glaze and then quickly fire it so that when they came out, it was finished. So I thought, hey, why don't we try something like that? And that was called raku. It was pretty amazing. First time I'd ever seen anybody open a kiln while it was absolutely red hot at the peak of its firing. Reach in, pull it out with metal tongs. And I wasn't sure what to do with it, but having misread or misunderstood, I decided, well, let's just take it out and run through the crowd over to that fish pond and cool it really quickly. Well, it was fantastic. People loved it, you know. Watch out, hot pot's coming. But the results were really shitty, terrible. I couldn't figure out what was so wonderful about this process. So that night I decided to go back to the studio and reread Leach's instructions. So the next day, I got really excited, and it worked.
Paul took that process a lot further. Instead of letting the raku pot just taken out of the red hot fire to cool at normal temperature, he would plunge it into all kinds of things like sawdust or all kinds of different leaves that would cause reduction and all kinds of chemical changes on the surface of the clay. So we got a great variety of results.
And everyone says, well, it's Japanese raku. It's not Japanese raku. Paul, he used that idea of fast firing as a basis for what he calls raku, but it's not raku, it's soldner.
The word raku in America has become almost equal to describing a technique of firing and then smoking pots. But I don't know that that really describes what I think raku-ness is. Raku means comfortable. It means relaxed. It means enjoyment. Through the years, I felt that that description of raku was too superficial. And I thought a lot about what else could that word mean in context of what I thought it was for myself. And I finally decided that the best way I could describe it was, on one hand, a serendipitous event where you found something you weren't looking for. On another hand, it was based on something that we recognize as being very difficult to do, and yet if it's done well, it looks effortless. So there had to be a deeper meaning for me, which I now refer to as the piece having raku-ness. And it doesn't make any difference whether it's with clay or fire. It could be a violin performance, it could be a dance performance, it could be a skier, even a boxer. When it's done that well, something so difficult that it looks effortless, that's my new definition of what I think raku is.
If you watch Paul assemble works, he makes them out of approximately 8 to 10 individual pieces, each of which is thrown on the wheel and then altered in some way. Smashed, rolled, cut, folded, all of these processes are actions that he does onto the clay that make it really soft and hard, angular and curved, all of these contrasts together. When he puts them together, the pieces are very heavy, and yet when you look at them, they have this sense of being lifted up from the base, of extending out into air, of almost taking flight.
I search very privately. I don't talk about it very often, but I search a lot trying to find a place in our culture and our society where what I'm making has a little significance, a little importance, by using objects around me that are connected with my culture. It made me feel a little bit better. So I often use automobile tire tracks. I go around taking imprints off of manhole covers, sometimes the floor mat used around a sink, you know, in a restaurant. I use shoe patterns a lot if you look at my work. Sometimes in my Birkenstocks, sometimes I'll pick somebody out of the audience and say, come over here and step on this piece of clay. These all become patterns of our time, of our culture. Clay is beautiful that way. It takes any impression that you put on it. And I like to think that somewhere down the road, years from now, people will look at my pieces and say, oh, what are those things?